I want to talk about what it's like to work in healthcare, and I'll try to do my best. Healthcare is very diverse, very mixed, and very difficult to really pin down or describe in a single video or a single conversation, but I'll do my best. So, from if you are working in a single independent hospital, right, a community hospital with no affiliations, no external interests, IT in that hospital is, I don't want to say fairly routine, because you're going to have quite a few challenges, and it actually only gets worse as a hospital becomes more complicated. So if you're looking at a single hospital, the problems you're going to run into are there's usually poor training when it comes to clinicians. So nurses, medical students, if they have any, probably won't in a small community hospital. Um, but if they do have medical students, if they have nurses, technicians, doctors, they're usually poorly trained. They might know how to wing their way through the patient portals, but um, knowing how to navigate all of the different services within the hospital is not a priority for the powers that be. They usually just teach them enough to do their job. And that can be frustrating because IT is usually getting, nonsense help desk tickets for problems that could easily be solved if they did good routine training once in a while, if they had good updated manuals. These hospitals will just have screenshots on like a Word document. There'll be a screenshot like how to log in, how to access this, how to, see a patient's, I don't know, radiology artifacts and scans, or how to, look and see they were admitted to cardiology, what did cardiology give them in terms of medication. I'm not a clinician, I'm not a provider, so I can't really speak to the specifics, but that's what's frustrating is that the training manuals are often outdated. I mean, they take screenshots 5 years ago, and the user interface has changed 2-3 times entirely. So a lot of that stuff is outdated. I mean, what is supposed to be on the left side, that tab has been on the right side, right? The button that was over here, now you have to go to a drop-down menu and drop it down. Hover your mouse over here until it drops down, and then look for that link. So, outdated manuals. Customer support is usually overwhelmed with routine tickets or repeat tickets that have trends or commonalities that aren't being addressed at the root core. You're dealing with patients whose I hesitate to say that their patient experience, their healthcare delivery is lacking, right? I would never say that, but hospitals come very close to negatively impacting patient care. Not to say they negatively impacted, but it could be better, right? The fact that it could be better if IT was improved and invested in as an asset rather than being seen as a liability shows you that there's definitely problems in healthcare. They know how to keep their staff adequately trained just enough legally so that they can still do their jobs. But if a nurse spends 3 minutes doing something they could have done in 1 minute if they knew the shortcuts, the hospital admins aren't really concerned with that time. They're just like, let them struggle or let them go through these growing pains that are unnecessary. We don't want to invest time in coaching. We don't want to expand our IT team. We don't want to train our employees. We just want them to be able to care for patients, even if they have to spend time doing things that should be automated or improved or enhanced in some way. There's a lot of bureaucracy in healthcare. You have to really defend any IT investments. You have to really make a case why you need additional employees, why you need additional purchases, acquisitions, why you need to modernize. Because oftentimes it has nothing. You can't use employee retention or happiness as a metric. You can't use time that will be saved as a metric. All they care about is money, right? So if you tell them that, this will save nurses, 30 minutes every day, they're going to be like, who cares? If you tell them this will allow us to triage patients faster or onboard, new patients faster in the ER, which means we can see them faster and, build them faster, then they're like, okay, you have our attention, right? Which sucks. That's not the way it should be, but that is unfortunately how it is. And this is just, small community hospitals. So struggling with technical literacy, struggling with admins who, for them, I will never say a hospital has ever endangered any patients, but there's definitely things that they could do to improve the experience, right? I mean, the experience is not just about leaving the hospital alive, but you want things to be easy for you and likewise for the people providing for you. I would not be happy to go into a hospital and I see my providers cursing under their breath because they're like, where was that button? I know it's here, and where did they put it? They're always moving it around. Just bear with me. They're moving it around. And that's not good for me. If I'm in a stressful situation, then I see my providers also stressed over there. That's not going to help either of us. So again, I've never seen patient delivery negatively impacted, but there are definitely ways they can improve technical literacy, improve their investments, grow certain teams. I find in healthcare you have bare bone, skeleton crew. They have learned how to have the minimal amount of people in order to, again, legally provide care as a healthcare facility. But every employee is overworked but not burnt out, or there's not a high attrition rate. They will find a way to just get by barely, which is frustrating. So that's a small community hospital, and that's simple. You'll struggle with resources financially. You'll struggle with human capital. You'll struggle with training, and you'll also struggle with getting different departments to honestly integrate all of their hardware into the hospital systems and make sure that those, all those records are, complying with all, laws, standards, and policies. So privacy is a huge concern in hospitals, making sure that patient information is not accessed by people unless they absolutely need it. And, they are practitioners who need access to information to provide care, to add information to someone's chart, make changes, making sure that the right people have the right levels of access is key. They will add privacy protocols and extra security steps in the interest of patient privacy, even if it's at the expense of employee happiness. And I think there can be a balance. You can make software secure while also making it easy to use. But they'll say, no, we can't make this easy to navigate. What if someone, what if someone with, who accidentally or somehow gets into our systems, if we make it too intuitive, it'll be easy for them to navigate through all these patient records. It's just bad, empty arguments all around. If you go to the other end of the spectrum, right, if we look at a large university hospital with affiliations with a medical school, and it has residency and fellowship programs, right? It's part of a healthcare system where it has other affiliated hospitals. The IT portfolio there gets infinitely more complicated, right? You have to make sure that your hospital integrates well with the other hospitals. And keep in mind, some healthcare systems, every hospital, even if they're on the same team, under the same umbrella, they sometimes have their own IT departments, which means that standards are not always identical. Sometimes they have an Office of Shared Services. So Office of Shared Services means that the hospitals have, they have like a single IT department. They don't have one at each hospital, but rather all of them share a single IT department. That usually means that there's better standards, that there's better continuity of operations across all of the hospitals. All their applications are going to be equally modernized or updated. It's not that you'll go to the fancy hospital downtown and then go to the old hospital, uptown, and then you see that hospital systems are sort of older or the interfaces are not as updated or polished. In these larger systems, you'll see a difference and you'll deal with challenges if you're dealing with multiple hospitals with different IT departments and not shared services, right? So that's something to look out for. Making sure the hospitals are integrated with each other is a challenge. Making sure that they're integrated with the affiliated universities is a challenge, just because these relationships are, I don't want to say tenuous, but they're not always permanent, right? Just to give an example, not that I have any exposure, this is just an example, but St. Joseph's Regional Medical Center in Paterson, New Jersey is a teaching hospital or clinical affiliate of New York Medical College. Now, just this is all hearsay, but from what I understand, they've stopped conducting or hosting third-year rotations for medical students. So what that means is they're no longer having New York Medical College students rotate at their hospital, right? And again, this is just hearsay. And they are sponsoring their own residency and fellowship programs rather than hosting residency and fellowship programs to New York Medical College, right? So when these agreements change, integrations between a hospital or medical school, might also change with that. So making sure everything integrates, but then likewise making sure they separate in case agreements fall apart or are modified. That's something that you have to consider when dealing with these IT portfolios. When it comes to research, that's another consideration. Supporting residents and fellows, that's again another consideration. Especially when residents and fellows are rotating at other hospitals or affiliates, you have to keep that in mind. You sometimes have large healthcare systems that have outpatient clinics. I mean, the applications that the hospital is using are not the application the outpatient clinic is going to use, right? The outpatient clinic, for example, I mean, if they have a primary, the outpatient facility that does like primary care or something, I mean, they're not going to need access to, the radiology applications or something like that, right? Just to give an example, that the needs of IT for outpatient clinics that are very routine, 9 to 5, are going to be different from inpatient care, which is 24/7, which is critical. It's just different environments. And likewise, you have to adjust your IT services to reflect the needs of the providers. And likewise, in big systems, you're gonna mirror a lot of the issues with community hospitals. Technical literacy is usually low. Training manuals are, training is definitely an afterthought. At the end of the day, admins are just trying to maximize their IT investments in the sense that they just want to get the most they can out of their IT staff without giving them the resources they need to thrive or make everyone's lives easier. So that's just a little bit of context into healthcare and what it's like working in healthcare. If you have any questions, definitely drop a line. And any hospital or school that I mentioned, it was definitely just an example. Consider it hypothetical. I don't want it to be held against me if someone says, "Oh no, these hospitals are, and now this hospital and school are now reintegrated" or something. Just the examples I gave are just fictional. So yeah, have a good one.